I presented today with Melissa Maffeo on supporting teaching-focused faculty in higher ed. And this is a passion issue for both of us because we are in non-tenure track, permanent, full-time faculty positions at our respective institutions. And we have lots of friends that are in similar type positions, even if they are sometimes called something different.
You've just heard Karenna Malavanti from Baylor University. Eric had the opportunity to sit down with Karenna at the 2024 Annual Conference on Teaching in Louisville, Kentucky, for this 214th episode of Psych Sessions, Conversations about Teaching and Stuff.
Hi, my name is Vishal Tucker, and I am currently an assistant professor at the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center. I am excited to be a member of SDP since SDP offers a place where I feel like I belong and I am always welcome. There are tons of opportunities like task forces, small groups, and the Annual Conference on Teaching, or ACT, to meet new friends, reunite with old ones, learn something new each step of the way, and learn more about the impact and importance of being a teacher of psychology. I encourage everyone to visit teachpsych.org and join SDP as a member today.
Psych Sessions is sponsored by W.W. Norton. Are you looking for more activities to promote scientific literacy? ZAPS 3.0 interactive labs from W.W. Norton are brief, hands-on activities that invite students to actively participate in the process of psychological research and discovery. Utilizing a consistent 5-part framework and incorporating transparent design principles, students experience classic psychological studies like the Stroop effect, false memory, the serial position effect, signal detection, and more. Once they've completed the experiment, students can compare their data with national data and their own classmates, offering the opportunity for rich in-class or online discussions. Bring the science of psychology to life for your students with ZAPS. For Psych Sessions listeners new to ZAPS, you can try it for free the next time you teach. Just go to siegel.wwnorton.com/Psych Sessions, and the folks at WW Norton will even integrate it into your LMS for you. That is Siegel, like the bird, SEAGULL.wwnorton.com/Psych Sessions.
Hi, welcome to another edition of Psych Sessions. I'm here at the Annual Conference of Teaching in October of 2024 here in Louisville, right? It's not Louisville. I know that. It's Louisville.
Yeah.
It's like two syllables, not Louisville. Sorry.
Right.
Thank you. I'm here with, I really want to pronounce this correctly. Karenna Malavanti.
Karenna Malavanti.
Oh my God, you've got a name tag on in front of me. What am I doing?
It's okay.
Thank you, Karenna, for being very patient with me. I mess up students' names so much, and I know names are super important, and so I try to learn all my students' names by the end of the semester. I oftentimes don't, but I tell them all the time, if I get it wrong, you've got to correct me, otherwise I'll learn it wrong.
Absolutely.
So
I do the same.
Names are so Karenna, thank you. And Karenna or Karenna?
Karenna.
Karenna. Man, that E is a misnomer, isn't it?
I know. I've asked my mom about this.
Oh my gosh. What did your mom say?
That this was the spelling she wanted.
But not the pronunciation.
And the pronunciation.
So Karenna.
Both, yes.
But, I've got a student in class this semester who spells your name, but Corinna.
Okay. That is typically the Corinna is how I usually see it, but the two N's. There we go. We have that similarity.
Yeah, and I think I called her Karenna at first, and she did. She was lovely. She corrected me and said Karenna.
Yeah.
So I try to remember that. So
I just try to answer anything that comes remotely close.
Well, okay. That's really kind of you. I think that's really sweet of you. But that's hard. Here's the piece of that. We'll get to the important stuff in a minute. I think women in academia get disrespected more about names than men do. So having students and faculty and colleagues say your name correctly, I think is really super important.
Oh, absolutely.
I really do.
It is.
In my department configuration, I was once in a corner office, and my dear colleague, Dr. Mary Pritchard, was around the corner, and a student was going past Dr. Pritchard's office, and she said to me, "Hi, Dr. Landrum." We happened to be outside talking in the hallway where all the action happens, right? And she said, "Hi, Dr. Landrum," and she rounded the corner and she said, "Hi, Mary." And I stopped her and I said, no, that's Dr. Pritchard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, names are important.
Yes.
So Karenna, I got the pleasure of seeing you co-present earlier this morning at ACT, and it was lovely. And I thought maybe you could tell our listeners a little bit about what you presented on.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for letting me come on this podcast today. I'm a longtime fan.
Oh, thank you. It's very
sweet.
And
I'm really excited to talk about the work that we are doing and that has really been fostered by STP, by the connections that we've made and the community of support that we have here through the Society of Teaching Psychology. So I presented today with Melissa Maffeo on supporting teaching-focused faculty in higher ed. And this is a passion issue for both of us because we are in non-tenure track, permanent, full-time faculty positions at our respective institutions. She's at Wake Forest. I'm at Baylor University. And we have lots of friends that are in similar type positions, even if they are sometimes called something different. One of the reasons why we wanted to do this presentation was because we wanted to give voice to the fact that we have a large number of faculty who are contributing to STP, contributing to teaching large number of students, but these roles can look different at different institutions and might not receive the same amount of support. And that is only further exacerbated, the lack of support, when we are siloed and we don't talk about it. And so today we talked a little bit about the strengths and the joys that we find in our positions and some of the common challenges. And we also segued into advocacy. How can we advocate for even more rights, responsibilities within our roles? This is such an important topic. On my campus, what you're calling teaching faculty or teaching position to faculty, we call clinical faculty, which is a confusing title because you think about clinicals, you think about nursing students doing clinicals, but it's a different tier. I'm not going to say it's a lower tier because it isn't, right? But it's a different tier from tenure track. It's a different tier from adjunct. Right. It's actually a different tier from lecturers at my university. Mm-hmm. So it's really, it's the new kid on the block. And so we understand the least about that position. And there are some real benefits. And I know from your presentation, this isn't universal. One of the benefits is you can fund from multiple sources on our campus. And so, my salary is state appropriated money, but a clinical faculty member can get money from grants and state appropriations and other sources. And so there are a couple of occasions where clinical faculty get paid more. It's not the norm, but there are a couple of spaces for that. But the clinical faculty I've talked to are desperately concerned about their position and their future. It's not that they don't trust the university about this is a full-time continuing position. It's just that it's so new that they don't trust the university. I don't think we've had clinical faculty for more than 5 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, clinical line is also a line in my university as well. And they are also the newest. We've had full-time teaching track faculty for a long time. Oh, okay. But we have done some work on trying to align kind of all of our non-tenure track faculty so that they at least have now the kind of the three ranks within them. So in the clinical line, usually those are our professors who are maintaining some kind of clinical practice, so supervision of our PsyD students, and, actually supervising practicum in addition to their teaching duties. Sure. And that's just an example in my department, whereas our teaching faculty, would be teaching more undergraduate classes than our clinicals and our research track faculty.
In Texas, can faculty unionize?
Well, I'm at a private institution.
Okay.
So I actually do not know the answer to that. And I like to tell my students, anytime I don't know something, I can check. I can find this out for you, but I do not want to miss.
Or so could our podcast listeners with a Google search. And I guess I could have too. Before we're done with today, I got to tell you a Baylor University story. I don't need to tell it now, but I got to tell it to you.
I'm so curious.
No, not now.
Okay, in a little bit.
You're the center of attention, not me. So,
but I did want to come back to this idea that there are at some institutions this teaching track, they are called clinicals. And I think, yes, I have seen that. I have a good friend, in Washington who is also whose role is very similar to mine, and she is called clinical associate professor. Mm-hmm. And so,
yes, exactly. Yep.
Yes. And yet all of us are non-tenure track. So we have this commonality. We're hoping that with podcasts like these, we're trying to come up with a community that will write a paper, with presentations like the one that we gave today, that we will, start to kind of educate more folks that are in these roles about the potential for promotion, the potential for voice in faculty governance, the potential for more service and leadership at the institution. Mm-hmm. There are so many ways that we can contribute to the life of our students, our colleagues, our institution, professional organizations, and but not everyone has the imagination to see that yet. So we would like to give light to it.
Well, and I also think that not everyone has the industry to get it done, like you and Melissa were talking about this morning. I was, it's my first year on faculty senate at Boise State. And so, which is from time to time a mind-numbingly boring experience, sitting through presentations and committee reports and, Robert's Rules of Order and all of that stuff. But I think to achieve your agenda, what I'm taking away from the presentation and this conversation is that there's a lot of legwork that people have to do.
Yes.
And in some ways that strikes me as unfair. Mm-hmm. But I suppose there's lots of things that are unfair about the position that non-tenure track faculty are in.
Yes.
All of them. Yeah.
Yes. So I'd like to say that
whether you're a passionate psychology enthusiast or a dedicated college professor, we know that every student is unique, and so should be their learning journey. That's why we're thrilled to introduce you to Macmillan Learning's Achieve platform. Imagine a space where learning is as dynamic as the students themselves. Achieve offers a personalized experience with interactive ebooks and collaborative class management tools designed to meet each student's needs. But that's not all. Immerse yourself in our multimedia study tools and explore over 100 new videos, each crafted to spark curiosity and deepen understanding. For those who believe in empowering students with essential skills, Achieve has exclusive skill activities to help them master note-taking and APA-style usage. It's more than just learning. It's about preparing students for success in the real world. Innovation in education is at the heart of what we do. So why not be a part of this journey? Discover how you can inspire and transform learning experiences by visiting macmillanlearning.com/psych sessions. Together with Macmillan Learning, let's inspire what's possible for every learner. Until next time, keep exploring and keep learning.
When we are hired into these positions, I think that we are really mission aligned. We're really enthusiastic about teaching. We're excited for the role that we will play in these students' lives. And at the same time, we don't want to feel that we are less than our peers.
Right.
And it would be great if all of our tenured faculty members could view the good work that we're doing. Sometimes they don't know it though. Can view the good work and advocate for us. And I am really lucky that I have colleagues at Baylor who stood alongside, right, in this committee, this university-wide committee that came out of this faculty senate, to imagine and do the research to have the third tier. But it can be a lot of legwork, and it was a 2-year process. It was a cross-sectional committee. It was sometimes mind-numbing work to sift through really inaccessible documents, and you have to find a contact at a university who could maybe give you information about their faculty handbook. And
why can't we share those things publicly?
We can't sometimes, and so we have to do a little bit more digging. But the end goal was aspirational, and we felt very good about the work that we did.
Yeah, and as well you should, because this is, I'm just thinking about self-centeredly, my own department. We don't have any current teaching-focused faculty exclusively the way we're talking about it today. Mm-hmm. We have tenure track faculty, and then we have lecturers who are somewhat similar, I think, to teaching faculty, although I think their service obligations are probably a little bit different. Yeah. And I'm reflecting back on, in our department, everybody who's full-time, no matter of status, for example, gets to vote.
Yeah.
But there are distinctions, and one that came up in your talk today was we had a faculty member who was a full-time lecturer who wanted to be the first author on a grant, and our grants office wouldn't let them.
Yeah, and some funding agencies will not allow it.
Yeah, so my colleague, Cindy McCrae, had to go and find somebody to be the first author on her research, on her grant that she's doing on the legwork on, because at the time she was not tenure track. So, and plus, I think there's a trend that I've read about where the idea of tenure is going away. I mean, so it could be that guys like me who retire with tenure are going to be replaced by people who are not on the tenure track. And so figuring this out for what you're doing right now makes good sense to me, because I think there will be a shift in the higher ed landscape of less tenure track and more non-tenure track.
Yeah. I've read some of those similar, articles in Chronicle of Higher Ed or Inside Higher Ed. And I hope that tenure stays, even though I will never be someone who gets tenure at my current institution. But I think that when there are state legislatures who are actively working to do away with academic freedom, tenure protects academic freedom. And the aspirational, the hopeful, the optimistic person in me wants to hope and dream that tenure will protect our colleagues in the good work that they're doing in their research and in their teaching. And by default, it would protect everyone. But I also read these articles and I think, wow, tenure might really foreseeably go away in a generation.
It makes me think of two things. One is, oh, she's still an optimist. And so good for you. Good for you. One of us in the room is an optimist. That's awesome. And the other thing it makes me think of is that I do feel that way about having tenure, in that I have to take it out for a spin every now and again.
Okay. I
have to defend people who are being attacked.
Yes.
I have to defend people who are having some of their academic rights stripped away from them. And so it may not be the cleverest phrase, but sometimes you got to take tenure out and use it and work it like a muscle. And otherwise, what's the point of all the process and all the applications and all the crap? So,
we don't like the red tape around it, but we can see the good
and the committees and evaluating other people's professional work and all that, I suppose we have to do it at some level, but, the hoops that we make people jump through, and sometimes for very little reward. Karenna, I want to ask you about Psi Chi, if we could.
Absolutely.
And so I'm a Psi Chi guy to my bones, and I was inducted in December of 1983. And I remember that because I was 4 years... No, I was not 4 years old. But you are the Southwest Regional President of Psi Chi. I am. Tell me about how that's going for you.
Thank you so much for asking this question, because I believe so strongly in Psi Chi's mission, and I so appreciate the work that you and Regan did with raising money for the mental health initiative this year, and you got pied.
Yeah, one of us did, and you're sitting across from him.
So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
But yes, I was newly elected, longtime Psi Chi advisor at my first institution, Carson Newman University, which was my first academic institution, and then now at Baylor University. And I went into this role with eyes wide open, really understanding that Psi Chi is worth believing in and championing. I am so excited for this role because you get a seat at the table with the National Board of Directors.
Literally.
You literally get a seat at the table. So within this role, I not only represent the Southwestern region and all the chapters that are there, but also international chapters that are part of that region, and get to help advocate for and discuss the entire Psi Chi as part of a member of the board of directors. Yeah. And so it is just a fantastic organization. I have never been part of committee meetings or a group that is so well run. And so if you were part of the reason why it's so well run, then I thank you for that too, because it is a great.
No, I'm not the reason why, but I agree with you. It's a great organization, and it's great for faculty. And I think faculty sometimes miss out on that. I mean, I was chapter president back in the olden days, and then I went to one school, ended up at Boise State. I was a chapter advisor, and from there, I volunteered on steering committees for the Rocky Mountain region, and then I became Psi Chi regional vice president for the Rocky Mountain region, and eventually then I became president. And it gave me access to people and resources I would have never imagined.
I mean, such rich discussion of how to advocate for our students. And a lot of us face the same kinds of questions, like how can we help these amazing students with high GPAs have access to a membership in Psi Chi, which now we have the Membership Assistance Fund and are actively raising money for, and also just coming up with new ideas for programming to support our students at the regional conferences. Super excited about who I'll be bringing out to SWPA next year. So Dr. Mickey Hebel will be coming.
Oh, she's awesome.
Yes. She just published a brand new book, Another Texan.
Rice University.
Yes. Yeah. And so I'm just so excited for the way that we can speak into the lives of our students in this particular way, but also I'm excited to connect with the region even more.
It's funny that you mentioned your distinguished speaker. I had one in 2010 and one in 2011. In 2010, mine was Albert Bandura.
Oh, wow.
And he came, and he was the nicest gentleman, gave a great talk. But he sat with students. He signed autographs for an hour and a half after his talk. Wow. He came to the Psi Chi luncheon, and I put my steering committee members flanking him so they could have access to thank them for all the work they'd done. He took pictures with my Boise State students. He was lovely. In 2011, my speaker was Elizabeth Loftus.
Wow.
And so I had the top two people in the English-speaking world back-to-back years. And I would have never had that access without Psi Chi.
Right. Yep.
Nope, never had it.
And one of the other things I really love about Psi Chi is that the mission of connection is not just the education and the honoring. It is an honor to be a member of Psi Chi, right. Absolutely. But it's also about giving back to our students, whether they be an undergraduate or graduate, or even our faculty. So, trying to reward our students for their ideas with their research proposals or their fantastic research talks or helping them with travel funding. Mm-hmm. It's this idea of pouring into our students who are so excited about psychology and trying not to damp out that excitement, which I think is something that can happen as we go on.
Absolutely.
So being able to pour into these students is so great.
So did you meet over the summer? Did you go to Chattanooga and have a big luncheon with the executive committee, the board of directors, and the staff?
We did. It was a dinner this time.
It was a dinner.
Yes, and it was so great to get to meet the people who run this organization so flawlessly and support all of our members and faculty.
Those were some of my favorite times when I got to visit Chattanooga as president and go in for organizational meetings and things like that. that and go in or come in a couple days earlier and be the part that you've missed out on. And I'm sorry to mention this is them having a central office on the 6th floor of a building that was near downtown. And you could go, I could go up there and walk around the perimeter and visit with every person and stop in and say hi and thank them for their service and thank them for their dedication. At least you got to have that dinner with them. That to me is really special.
Yes. They're lovely people and amazing to work with. And I just think it's the most well-run organization I've ever been a part of.
It's up there. I mean, if you really want to compare STP and Psi Chi, which is kind of an unfair comparison, they have different audiences to serve. They serve them differently. But I think Psi Chi's got something right, and Psi Chi's got something lifelong that you can carry from student into adulthood. We are faculty members, and so we have maybe a special affinity, but Psi Chi appeals to alumni who don't go to graduate school. They have newsletters, they have resources that they put out for alums, and so it has a special place in my heart.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I can't really speak into STP. I've had some, I guess, more minor leadership positions within STP.
You've done a lot.
But I can't speak to how well the organization is run. I'm sure it's run well. This is my favorite conference and my favorite professional organization, too.
The cool thing about STP is that there are a dozen or so people on the executive committee who care passionately and deeply about the organization.
Yeah.
I was talking to one of the presidents, Stephanie Awful. She's actually going to start in January, her presidential term. I was talking to her about this, and she said, like I've heard many times with my own voice, I'm worried because am I going to mess things up? And I tried to tell her, you have an executive committee backing you that has to vote on everything that you want to do of substance. And so you're not going to mess anything up because a bunch of talented people are going to be there to have your back. And so you do have some control of the rudder and where the organization goes, but really for a year, just like Psi Chi, you're president-elect, you're president, then you're past president. So, but Karenna, I think you're downplaying your contributions because I knew about you way much more before I met you in person, because your name was all over everything. You were all over the place. You're very visible in your contributions to STP.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed the way that I've been able to get involved with STP. I first started attending this conference just under 10 years ago, right after I'd gotten my doctorate, and quickly found the ECP committee. And I saw stars. I was like, oh, these are the people. This is not only my community, but these are my friends. And was really lucky to be part of that committee and even co-chair it for a little while and now serve on the membership communications committee.
That's awesome. Yeah. So 2 things. First off, you happen to mention my trigger word, which is lucky. I have many conversations on this podcast with guests about the role of luck.
Oh, gosh.
And if you mean, and I'm sorry to do this, and for longtime listeners, welcome back. I think people use luck because they don't want to brag or they don't want to boast. But I highly doubt if you may have had good fortune. You may have had a committee that worked really well together. That's very fortunate. But I have a hard time believing that your accomplishments are due to luck.
Thank you for saying that. That's a good reminder for me.
Well, and I don't know if you know the backstory to Bill McKeechee. Bill McKeechee was an amazing professor, nationally, internationally, died maybe 2018, I believe. And every time he talked about luck and how lucky he was. And I think Jane Hallinan wrote a book chapter about him called More Than Just Luck. And I got to know Bill just a tiny little bit, but I think that was his way of being humble.
Yeah.
He didn't, I know from his things I've read about him and a little bit of conversation with him, he worked his ass off. It wasn't lucky. He was hardworking and diligent and industrious and collaborative and all these great things. And so every time I hear luck, it's a trigger word for me. All right. So sorry, not sorry that I'll get off my soapbox now. What was the second thing that you talked about? It'll come back to me. I'm sorry. The luck thing just triggered me so badly. So what else are you doing these days? So what are you teaching?
Well, I teach crosses across the curriculum. So introductory psychology, introductory neuroscience, cognition is a longtime course of mine. But more recently, I've been trying to lean into my experimental psychology background. Okay. And I segued a little bit into some more service work at my institution and found out that I felt that time was passing me by. And in an odd way, I kind of felt like I was like losing my color like flamingos do after, they have, I guess, a baby flamingo, but,
when two flamingos love each other very, very much. Nah, never mind. That's a different podcast.
Yes.
Sorry.
But I didn't feel like myself, and I decided that I really needed to create a course or revamp a course because I really needed to feel that passion again, instead of feel so busy that I couldn't barely make any prep time for teaching. And so I'm so excited that I have now developed and taught a psychology and Latin American culture course.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Psychology and Latin American culture.
Awesome.
And I'm putting a proposal in the works for psychology of women and gender course. So some passion areas of mine, kind of informed by some of the work I've been doing on the side to elevate the work of historical women of color. And so I've contributed a chapter with a co-author, Lisa Bauer. And, we can talk about that as well. But that experience of writing a book on the work of Jeanette Altariba was extremely helpful and made me so excited to then develop a class on culture and then a class on women and gender.
Yeah, we all have to search for those things that fortify us or energize us, and it's great that you found your thing.
Yeah.
But you said you were cognitively trained, or you're a cognitive psychologist by training?
Yes.
Believe it or not, in the Stone Age, that was my training as well. I probably call myself an educational psychologist today, but I was trained as a cognitive psychologist. And I once knew that literature back in the 80s, but I'm afraid I haven't kept up on it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, I still love memory and cognition. It is kind of at the backbone. It's my most exciting chapters in intro psych, intro neuro, and in cognition. And anytime I can pull that into a class, I do. Okay. And I've been really leaning into my experimental psychology background lately to develop these new courses.
Where did you go to undergrad, may I ask?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so we're going to segue back into your Baylor story because I am actually a 3-time Baylor alumni. I teach at Baylor now. And I live on campus. I'm a faculty in residence at Baylor.
When did you start your undergraduate education at Baylor?
2006.
Oh, okay. All right. My story's not going to overlap with your story. Okay. That's not a thank God. It just does. The timelines don't overlap.
Yeah.
And so, wow, all three at the same place.
Right.
Good for you.
I mean, I just went straight through. I had a fantastic mentor who, I think saw something that, that was
Isn't that
good.
The case?
And Loretta McGregor's talk this morning of mentorship, that really resonated with me and is one of the reasons why I wanted to become a professor as well, just like one of her students said.
Did you grow up in Texas?
I grew up in San Antonio, Texas.
San Antonio is a fantastic city. Isn't that a lovely city?
Yes.
It's just, I've spent a little bit of time there, not nearly as much as I'd like to, but, it's just the culture, the diversity of thought.
Yes.
Is it keep San Antonio weird? Do they have that going on, just like Portland does?
Yeah, and Austin.
Yeah, and Austin.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah. But San Antonio, the Riverwalk, oh my gosh, every time I've been there, I've enjoyed my time there. So, when you started at Baylor in 2006, did you start as a psych major?
I didn't. And so
Thanks for being on the program. I'm just teasing.
I'm getting kicked out now.
No, ma'am, you're not at all.
No, I actually started as a biology major.
Okay.
As all good minority students do, right? You go into college as a bio pre-med major.
Okay, I didn't know about that meme. I'm sorry. Because I see a lot of minoritized students start in psychology, at least nowadays.
Yeah.
So you started in biology, and was it a switch from bio to psychology, or were there any stops along the way?
So I actually have an undergraduate degree in neuroscience.
Oh, yeah, you do.
And then got the PhD in experimental psych. With a cognitive psych mentor. Okay. All right.
If you trust me by now, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What kind of student were you in high school?
I try not to use this as a bad word, but if you were to think about like who's a nerd, that was me.
That's not a bad word.
Yes. And who wrote a book on, teaching while introverted? It was something like this. Was it just?
Yeah, there's a book like that, and there's also teaching with your mouth shut.
Pedagogy. Yes, something like that. And so I try, to use these words, and I don't mean them in a negative way at all. But I was just a total nerd, a total geek. I loved learning. I was in all the AP classes. I would stay after school to talk with teachers and do all those things.
So were you are you a first generation college student?
I am. And first generation American.
First generation. In high school. And I don't know why I like going here, but I do. Let me see. Band? Sports?
Yep.
Choir?
Yeah.
Everything. Debate?
Not debate.
Drama?
Not drama. I wish.
Okay. What did you play in the band?
Flute.
Okay. All right. Very good. Played French horn.
Okay. We bonded.
As long as we're self-disclosing.
Yes. And I played soccer, and then I'm an alto.
And you're an alto. All right. So do you appreciate Pitch Perfect as much as I do?
Oh, yes.
The movie? Oh, my God. And I wasn't even in choir.
So good.
Now I'm really digressing. The older I get, the more I cry. I'm just going to say that. And the first 10 times I watched the ending of Pitch Perfect 1, I just bawled my eyes out. Until I got used to it enough where, okay, don't cry, Eric. Just going to tell myself, to not do that. So I think I know the answer to this. Growing up, was it, will you go to college, or was it, what college will you go to?
What college will you go to?
Yeah. Do you have siblings?
I do.
And was it the same for all of them?
We have slightly different stories.
None of my business. Yeah.
And I don't mean to say it like that at
No.
all.
I'm kind of prying into personal stuff, and I don't know you that well. So
no, I am so proud of my sisters, and I mean, one of them is currently deployed into the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. Wow. And so she works with USAA, a big insurance company.
Yeah,
and she does amazing work and loves that work. And my younger sisters. Just very different from me. She was like the athlete of the family.
But you played soccer.
I know, but she was a much better soccer player and a much better singer. And if you know her, you love her. She has this warmth and vibrancy that I've always been so jealous of. And anyway, so she's everyone's best friend. We just adore her.
So you don't think you have that warmth?
It's so natural to her. I really do consider myself much more of an introvert than an extrovert. I think she's much more extroverted than I am.
All right.
And I do feel that in a classroom or in a small group setting, I can kind of turn it on like this.
We all do that, right?
Yeah.
We all flip the switch. I am literally a painfully shy introvert. This is the ideal number of people for me to have in a conversation right here.
Yeah.
2. My wife and I go out to dinner. I say, I don't want more than 4. Because at 4, you can normally still hear everybody. Once it goes beyond 4, you're just talking to the person here, here, and here, and that's all you're doing. And
Yes. Which is a big strength for those of us who go into the PhD. A lot of it is, yes, collaborative, but at some point you've got to buckle down with your thoughts, get it on paper, trust the process, and all of that means that you really have to be okay with being by yourself for a bit.
What's the age gap? You're the oldest?
Middle.
You're oh, I'm so sorry. What's the age gap between you and the sister that you just described?
My younger sister, she is almost 2 years younger than me.
Oh, that's not a big gap.
That's not a big gap.
What's the gap between the oldest and the youngest?
12 years.
That's still not that big a gap, really.
Yeah.
I mean, your parents might have had the oldest when they were 24 and they have the youngest at 36. That 12-year gap's not that big a deal.
No, but my big sister, she was quite bossy. So sometimes we would slip up and say, okay, Mom.
All right, so this is the thing you have to do. After this podcast is released, you have to send it directly to your big sister so she can hear it about the 30-minute mark. Your little sister says, hi.
Yes.
Yeah, and get that on the record for all to hear.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're fantastic. I just adore them.
Are your parents still with us?
They are.
Okay, and so this could be a holiday gift. This could be, a recording, an MP3 under the tree, right? Or whatever. And you could give it, and it'll be the gift that keeps on giving.
Yes.
All right, Karenna, I'm still saving my story.
Okay.
Building up anticipation. What else is going on? What else did you want to talk about?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that I would like to talk about is something I mentioned earlier, which is about aligning our service and leadership roles and our teaching and our passions with our values, and trying to identify what those values are can be really tough, but that is tough, necessary work so that we can find joy and fulfillment in our everyday life. And so I mentioned, I felt like I was losing my color. And because of that, I've had to segue out of a role in my department because I realized that it wasn't aligning quite as well as I had hoped with some of my long-term goals. And I realized I really wanted to step a little bit more into faculty senate, faculty advocacy. And so, I had to make that switch and make that decision. And those decisions can be really hard. When do you say no, or when do you say, things are done in this way? But if you go back to your goals and your values, then you can't go wrong.
Well, and I think you're fortunate to be at an institution that actually allowed you to do that.
Oh, yes.
If you were serving as a committee chair in your department or associate chair for the department or something, curriculum chair, and for you to come along and say, this isn't really aligning with me anymore, I want to switch gears. I think in some departments you would be told, sorry.
Yeah.
We need you in that role. We're a smallish department.
Right.
And we need everybody pulling their own weight. And I can come up with other cliches if needed.
Yeah.
But I think it's a telling sign that your department respected you and respected the things that you wanted to do. Because ultimately, honestly, on their part, it was a retention move. Because if they don't make those choices to support you, you're going to start looking. And maybe they think you're landlocked to San Antonio, but there's other schools in San Antonio, if I remember correctly, and there's all kinds of other opportunities. And so, good for them for recognizing your value and giving you the degrees of freedom to make that change. Yeah.
And it was great. I think being in communication with leadership is really important, but can be really hard to advocate. It can be hard to advocate for yourself when you're in a non-tenure track role.
Yes, absolutely. Someone's got to have your back.
Right. So
Somebody's
it's great to have leadership that can do that for
Somebody's
you.
got to take out tenure and take it for a spin.
Yes,
Someone's
there you
got to
go.
do that just to protect your colleagues who may
right.
need to be protected.
That's right. And then, I was able to say, well, I need to step away from this so that I can more fully delve into this other role. Right. And I think that, seeing that, yes, it is a retention issue, but it's also a promotion issue. What are the things that are going to help individuals get promoted and stay here for the long term as well?
That ability to say no is really important because I for example, when I talk to my colleagues at Boise State, normally my junior colleagues at Boise State, they'll come along and they'll say, oh, there's this really cool grant I want to apply for, or I'm going to write a book about blah, 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 or I'm going to do something really cool. And I will gently ask them, that is awesome. You should do that. What are you going to stop doing? Mm-hmm. Because I'm afraid I don't know any lazy colleagues in psychology anywhere that I've met where they just have oodles of time for bonbons and putting their feet up and watching the afternoon soaps. So I just don't know people like that. And it's interesting that you talked about saying no. Mona Zhu from Idaho State University is here, and she gave a talk a few years ago about having a no committee. Yeah. And so that idea of, should I do this new thing? Should I develop these courses that map onto me? But yet there's going to be a grant opportunity that's going to come your way or some really cool initiative that Baylor starts. And you're going to go, oh, I want to do that. And so her suggestion is you go to your no committee and you ask them, is this really a good move for me? Is this am I really missing out on a once in a lifetime opportunity, or will this come around again? Yeah. Will it come around in a different iteration? Right. Yeah. So, that ability to say no is a really important one. Yeah, and one that I've learned a lot from Mona and from Janet Peters as well. Yeah. Mona and Anna Ropp, and who am I leaving out? Maybe Bethany Fleck-Dillon out at the Rocky Mountain region gave a symposium a couple years ago. It was a jam-packed room. Oh, of course. Yeah, and they were also talking about burnout as it relates to the ability or inability to say no. Right. Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I kind of felt myself kind of going, and that's why I was kind of seeking something that would make me feel just really excited about teaching again. Yeah. And I was feeling so kind of, I think, underappreciated for the role that I was in. Yeah. And, I think I can be really honest about that with everyone, is that you really sometimes just have to check in with yourself and figure out, is there a way that you can move into positions where you're excited? And then that's when Psi Chi opened up, and that's when, Faculty Senate opened up. So even though I said no to something or enough to something, I was able to say yes to something else that I wouldn't have been able to if I had still played a role in that other way. Yeah, if we don't value ourselves, we can be easily devalued by others. And so when we valuing ourselves sometimes can feel a little bit icky, but I don't really think it is unless you go over the line. So talking about how valuable you are, your contributions, I think is a good thing for everyone. I think it's harder for some people than others, but it's a good thing, and it kind of shows the world what you can contribute, and the world will forget unless we occasionally remind them. Or they'll say things like, well, I'm just lucky. And so that's why you've got to come back and say, no, I worked my ass on that Psi Chi thing. Yeah. I made the best Southwest Region Conference Psi Chi events in the last 10 years. And you got to be able to take the credit for it. That's the hope, right? That is the hope. Yes. All right. So Karenna, you've been very patient with me and very lovely. Thank you so much. So I got my PhD in, I got my PhD in 1989 from Southern Illinois University, Carbondale, a place nobody has heard of. And I went on the job market. I was looking for an assistant professor, tenure track position, as I was trained to think about. And my very first interview was at the Department of Psychology at Baylor University in Waco, Texas. Oh my gosh. Wow. It was my very first interview, and the people there were absolutely lovely. They really were. They had neuroscience going then. I don't know if it was part of the departmental name, but
I don't think so.
There was a strong emphasis in neuroscience, and you could tell. And I was applying as a cognitive psychologist, trained in that. And I remember two things distinctly. My first interview ever with my PhD, or actually I was ABD at the time. By the time the interview was over, everybody knew that I was not a good match and fit. They were very polite, but they kind of figured out he's not going to be able to do the things we want him to do. And I figured out they're being so polite and so nice, I'm never going to see these people again. So they were just perfectly fine. But I had an interview outside of the department, I'm guessing with associate deans and maybe someone from the provost's office. And at that time, it was 5 men, older men, and me. And we're in this beautiful conference room. And and I don't know if it's still this formal. Okay, I'm glad you're enjoying this. It was like, Dr. Jones, do you have a question for Dr. Landrum? And Dr. Jones would go, well, thank you, Dr. Smith. I do have a question for Dr. Landrum. Dr. Landrum, what's your experience in teaching classes at the they just tripped over themselves by being Southern gentlemen. And it was like, I've never seen this with my own eyes. I grew up in the Midwest. I'm not quite sure. I mean, we're polite to each other in the Midwest, but we're not that polite. That it's calling you by your formal name and pausing and turning and looking and oh my gosh, it was. I remember it to this day, and it was actually before the bad stuff happened in Waco, so there was no negativity, no cloud or anything. And they had a visiting professor from England, Larry Weiskrantz. I got to meet Larry Weiskrantz.
That's amazing.
And sadly, he got to meet me. And so I'm 26 years old, and I'm just this kid who knew almost nothing interviewing at Baylor University. They were very kind to me. And so I do have that memory.
Yeah,
I wanted
that's
to share
a great story. And we do still have that interview, and it is almost as stuffy as you described.
Oh, is it really? Yeah. Now, and the funny thing is, I was raised Baptist, so I had no problem with the Baptist piece. I'm not really, but I think I signed a form while I was there that said if I were to get the job, I would agree to uphold the Baptist ideals.
Oh yeah, that's changed.
Yeah. Yeah. And the faculty warned me, it's just a form. Don't worry about it. We don't enforce anything. We're not going to your classroom to see if you're talking about playing cards or dancing or anything like that.
What a different place it was back then.
Yeah. Well.
That they even felt like they needed to have the disclaimer.
So is the phrase the Baylor bubble no longer a phrase?
So that is still a phrase, but I don't think it means the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
When I was interviewing there, the Baylor bubble meant our students live in a bubble, and they are not exposed to alcohol or cards or dancing. The things that if you're a Southern Baptist, really don't go well with life. So what does it mean now, the Baylor bubble?
So it means now life on campus, but our students are so much more heavily invested in the community and being a global partner. So part of the mission is worldwide leadership and service. And so we're sending an increasing amount of students out into the community with the Engaged Learning Distribution List. And then, of course, on study abroad. And so, and there's dancing on campus. I know. And there's card playing. I mean, who knew?
I'm not making that up. That was a thing back
I trust
then.
you. Yes, I absolutely know that was a
then.
thing. And so that's why I was saying it's almost as stuffy, that one part of the interview, but everything else is so much more relaxed.
So you remember that when you got hired, that interview with...
Yes, but they didn't... There's no form to sign like that anymore.
In a mahogany-laden office with the best of the best, of the furnishings and in my specific case, very old men taking turns asking me questions that were easy to answer. Yes, that way.
Yeah.
Karenna, and I know we're almost bumping up against time. Anything else you wanted to add or made sure that you said while we're here together and still recording?
Yeah. Is that I hope that if any of the listeners have questions about how to advocate for the third rank of teaching professor at their institution, I would love to send them research that we've already done.
Okay.
Send them the things that we have put together to help advocate for that. You know, I want to be a resource, and many of our colleagues here at ACT want to be that resource. And so maybe that's even then a plug to come to ACT and come see us in person as well.
And what I'll add is that if you will share with me those links, I'll put them in the show notes.
Okay,
so
great.
that when we release this episode, which won't be that long actually, when we release this, if they scrolled far enough in the show notes, they'll see the links that you provide to me.
Perfect.
They can go there directly.
That'd be wonderful. And thank you so much.
Thank you for spending the time with me. It's been absolutely delightful.
It has been.
Okay, well, I'm glad that you said that.
you.
If you didn't, it's okay, but thank you again.
Thanks.
Hey everyone, Garth here. Thanks for listening to Psych Sessions. If you could go to wherever you listen to our podcast and you would follow that podcast or like it, it really does help us as we are trying to get out to more teachers of psychology. Also, if you haven't checked out our website, please visit psychsessions.org and sign up for our monthly newsletter. We offer free resources and valuable news that you are going to want to know related to the teaching of psychology. Thanks.